Greetings everybody, it's Matt from Noweka, and this is another progress book video about GradeBook, and this is going to be specifically about setting up weights within your class. So this is also a special video for Clyde McPherson Middle School. Now what you're watching here could apply to you, but I'm going to be talking about a special policy that's going on in that individual building. So you can still see how to set up your weights, but in terms of that policy, that probably doesn't apply to you. The policy I'm talking about is going to be for Clyde McPherson Middle School. So let's go ahead and talk about setting up our weights here. So I'm going to go into my pre-calculus class here, and let's talk about weights. So the policy over at McPherson Middle School is that 80% of your grade must be on quizzes and tests, and 20% of your grade must be on homework and classwork. So let's talk about two different ways to set that up. Call it the easy way and more detailed, slightly harder way. So I'm going to go in here and create two assignment types. I'm going to call the first one class work and homework. I call it CHCLHW, classwork and homework. And I'm going to call the other one quizzes and tests. I'm going to call it QZTST. I'm just going to go quiz test. QZT, there we go. I can't put TST. I think TT is kind of confusing, so we'll leave it like that. I'm of course going to make them points. Oops. There we go. And I'm going to apply them here to my pre-calculus class. This is the one we're going to be setting up for this example. So all we have to do is click the boxes to apply that particular class. There we go. They just kind of sorted in order of alphabetical. So we can see the classwork and homework came up to the top. Quizzes and tests came in right there. I'm going to go back out to my dashboard. And I'm back in my class, and I got my assignment type set up. So you're going to have your assignment type set up for your class. Like I said, this is the easy way. Is just have those two categories. So if I go to calculation methods and weights, and I'm in pre-calc, I'm going to go ahead and flip that to a weighted average. And in this example, 20% of my weight for my class would be there, and 80% of my class would be there. So it doesn't matter how many classworks and homeworks. Phone's ringing. Doesn't matter how many classworks and homeworks and I put out, or how many quizzes and tests I put out. The quiz and test will always be 80% of the class, even if there's only one quiz. So your first quiz would be worth 80%. But if you do two quizzes, those will be worth 80%, so on and so forth. So that's how that's set up, and that's how I would say is the easy way, because there's only two categories. Anytime I put out a classwork or a homework, I can get that. Anytime I give a quiz or a test, I'll have that category, and I'll be able to see the results. Here's how you're performing across your classwork and homework, and here's how you're performing across your quizzes and tests. Now, let's do it in a slightly more complicated way. So I'm going to put it back to straight average real quick. I'm going to go back out to those assignment types, and we're going to change things up a little bit. So maybe I don't want to have just two categories. And I did check, and as far as I know, this is allowed. I'm going to have tests. I'm going to have quizzes. I'm going to have classwork. I'm going to have homework. Maybe in this class we have a math workbook that we're going to do in there, or some other category. I clicked the wrong column. There we go. So let's go ahead and set up for this scenario and see how we would do that. Sorry, my recording got interrupted, so we will start again right here. So here's what we're going to talk about. We just set up our assignment types. We checked our categories for pre-calc, the ones we wanted. And now we're going to go into calculations and weights, our methods and weights, and we're going to go ahead and set it up. So we're going to still follow the school's policy in which quizzes and tests are worth 80%, but we're just kind of break it up. So we're going to say 50% of that 80% is tests. 30% is quizzes. So tests and quizzes are worth 80, but the tests are worth more than the quizzes. So the tests are more important. A test is more important than a quiz. And then we have the rest of the 20% we're going to break out. So I'm going to say, I'm going to give, let's say, 8% to the math workbook. I'm only going to give 5% to homework. And what is that? That's 13. So then 7 points to classwork, or if we wanted to make it more round numbers, maybe I could give 5 points here and give 10 points there. So 10, 15, 20. So we have 20% of our stuff in classwork homework, and I'm counting math or math workbook kind of as classwork, but I'm giving it its own breakout. So I'll see here so what are the benefits, what are the disadvantages? So the benefits here is that if I want to see how students performing on math workbook, I will get a result here, and I know that result will be 5% toward their total grade. If I want to see how they're performing on classwork, I'll get a result there, and it'll be 10% toward their total grade. Homework, 5%. And you can make these numbers kind of be anything you want as long as they line up where your quizzes and tests, I would call those summative assessments. Your summative assessments of quizzes and tests are worth 80% in totality when you add them up, and that your classwork, your formative assessments, and I would say, the math workbook and classwork and homework are all formative, and those add up to 10, 15, 20 in total. So as long as they add up to 20, you should be good there. So for everybody else who's not at McPherson Middle School, you can set those weight numbers to whatever you want, unless, of course, your district or school has a policy for this particular subject and they want it set up a certain way. Like I've seen other districts before, they have math with them they want the math subject set up with a certain weighting, and so everybody would set them up that way. I've seen other districts where they have summative and formative assessments in this period. There might just all be this. They might have a category summative, they might have another category formative, and it's 80-20. I've seen stuff like that out there as well. But a couple caveats for people who aren't in McPherson. I would usually have these totals add up to 100. Makes a little more sense to parents and everybody else when they're kind of trying to figure out what's going on here. But they don't have to be. Let's just say we had 3 categories in our class. Let's just say we had classwork, quizzes, and tests. I could have these each be 1, if you add them all up, that's 3. So this is 1/3 of my class, so 33.33%. Quizzes are 33.33%. Tests are 33.33%. And of course, since it's a repeating number, that makes it easier to get 1/3 for each. I've seen this exact example where they've had to set it up like this at a school, and all their math classes were set up this way, where their classwork was 1, their quizzes were 2, and their tests were 3. So the total here is 6. So classwork is worth 1/6 of the entire grade. Quizzes are worth 2/6 or 1/3 of your grade, and tests being 3/6 were worth half of your grade. So once again, that's another way you can do it. Of course, I always recommend having them add up to the 100%, but in certain cases where you have different numbers, might not be a possibility. So hopefully you guys found that informative. See you guys next time. This is Matt signing out, and have a great day.